Hello and welcome to this special episode of Bryan Lomax Movie Talk, where I'm going to be taking a look at the villains of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and ranking them in order of preference. Now this video is just going to be covering the villains from Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the MCU, so that's every film from Iron Man up to Avengers Age of Ultron. Now of course there are a lot of villains throughout Phase 1 and 2 of the MCU. I count 35 in total. If you spot any that I missed, please comment below and let me know about them. But I'm going to be talking about those 35 villains that I've pinpointed, that I see. Obviously that's going to take some time, so I'm going to split this video into two. And this is part one, and I will be talking about the first 20 in my list in this video, and then in part two I'll be running down my last 15. So at number 35 is Senator Stern. Now Senator Stern is played by Gary Shandling, and really he was just a bit of a joke of a character. Never really expected him to return. He was just a politician. For that reason it's kind of a bit jarring really when he suddenly is revealed as a villain in Captain America the Winter Soldier. The balance there of comedy, and then all of a sudden we're supposed to take him as this villain. He's not threatening in any way, he's just a joke, and I do laugh. I find it humorous the way they use him, but to me he's just not a very good villain at all. At number 34 we've got Heinz Kruger, who is played by Richard Armitage. Most people will know him from The Hobbit. He's not really a mega villain or anything, but he does cause a lot of damage. He is the one who is responsible for killing the man who basically saw the potential in Steve Rogers to become Captain America. So he does take quite a strike against Steve Rogers. He's essentially there for a little bit of exposition, a little bit of a fight sequence, but I like the fact that he kind of takes his own life. He takes a pill rather than being caught, and for that reason it makes him a little bit of a badass. Number 33 is Raza. Now Raza is technically the first villain to appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he's the man who basically captures Tony Stark in Iron Man 1, and this is before we learn Tony's friend and business partner Obadiah Stane is actually a villain himself. Raza is just a terrorist, and he's literally just trying to get Tony Stark to make a weapon for him. There's nothing more to it than that. There's not a great deal of character development there. He's simply just painted as an evil terrorist. He's quite one-dimensional. Speaking of one-dimensional, we come to number 32, which is Korath. Now this is an odd one because it's played by quite a really good actor actually, in the shape of Jimon Hounsou. He's a really great actor. You know, he's appeared in films like Gladiator and whatnot, and it's a shame to see him here in this, because this character is severely underwritten. He doesn't really do a right lot. He screams a few lines out, but there's no real character there. And if this was a nobody actor in this role, you wouldn't really give it that much attention. But because it is who it is, you're waiting for him to do a bit more, but he's not. He's just there for a few action sequences and nothing more really. Number 31 is the Collector, played by Benicio del Toro. Now he appeared in the end credit sequence of Thor: The Dark World, which kind of got us all thinking, oh great, this is going to be a big guy, he's going to be a big villain, and as it turns out he's not really. He's a character that is brought in essentially for exposition. He's the guy who's going to tell us, the audience, what is going on with these stones that Thanos is eventually going to try and collect. I like Benicio del Toro a lot as an actor. I think he's got a lot of presence, he's quite menacing, and some of that comes through in The Collector. You do feel that this guy is someone to be feared simply because of what he does. But beyond that, he's a bit of a one-note villain. He doesn't really do much. He doesn't have that much presence. Again, simply because of the actor who's playing him. That's the only reason he makes any kind of impact, and in all honesty he does look a bit stupid. Number 30 is the Chitauri. Now these are the guys that basically Loki is given as an army. They don't do much. Again, they're just lackeys, but their design is quite cool. I do like the design of them, and I like that they fly around on them weird scooter things, and yeah, they pose a threat for the Avengers, and for that reason they're a bit higher than the ones that have already appeared on this list. Number 29 is Malekith. Malekith for me was a really weak villain. I didn't truly understand his motivations. He was evil for the sake of being evil. Basically, we're told he's a dark elf, so that means he's bad. And to me, I want a bit more than that. I want a bit more character motivation than that. He is fairly high on this list, considering we've got a few characters beneath him that do actually get a bit more development, but I do like his design. I like the look of this character. He does pose a threat. He's got quite a bit of menace about him because of his look and because of the army that he leads. But beyond that, yeah, I would have really loved more character development because he's just got none. Number 28 is a villain called The Other. Now, he's down as a villain in the MCU simply because he's a bad guy. He works for Thanos, and he's essentially the middleman between Thanos and Loki. He's the one who kind of hires Loki to do the business in the Avengers, but he never actually goes up against any of the Avengers or any of the heroes we've come to know in the MCU. So some people might question my reasoning for putting him on there, but that being said, he is still a villain. He's a bad guy. He is the one who has created a threat for the Avengers, obviously being pushed by Thanos. He looks cool. I like the voice that is given to him. I don't know the name of the actor that played him. His name escapes me, but yeah, he makes him suitably creepy, and I would have liked to have seen more of him, but obviously, for those who've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you'll know that we won't be seeing him again. And number 27 is a character that, in the credits at least, is called Curse. He appears in Thor: The Dark World, and he's basically Malekith's henchman. Now, you'd think that the main villain, Malekith, would appear higher on this list, but actually, Curse kind of has a little bit more character development, and I do mean a little bit more because none of the villains in that film are very well developed, except for Loki. But I like the look of this guy, and he's basically just a walking juggernaut. He's quite fearsome. He's quite scary to look at with all the big horns coming out of him and stuff. And he poses a genuine threat physically to Thor. They have a good fight sequence. So yeah, I like this villain as a henchman, but other than that, he doesn't really do much else other than just be something to fight, really. And speaking of fighters, we have number 26, which is Batroc. Batroc appears in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and he does put up quite a good fight with Captain America, despite being only human. From what we see in the film, I don't know the character from the comic books, he doesn't appear to have any superpowers. He's literally just a very good fighter. He's also a terrorist, a pirate. With that little bit of knowledge about the character, again, underdeveloped, we don't get a right lot to know about this character, but from what we do get, I kind of got a sense from him that there was more, that I would like to see him return, in fact, and I like that he does want to go up against Captain America one-on-one. He basically goads Captain America into dropping his shield and just fighting with him, and for that, he's quite a badass, and again, underdeveloped, but because of that badassery, it kind of elevates him a little bit higher on this list. And number 25 is Strucker, played by Thomas Kretschmann. He's a scientist who works for Hydra, and he's basically the one who has created the metahumans, if you want to call them that, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. He's the one who's done all the experimentation on them and given them their powers. Now, this is a fairly interesting character given the short time we're given with him. He gets an after credits sequence in one of the films. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but he plays a big part in the introduction of Avengers Age of Ultron. How this character goes out of Avengers Age of Ultron, yeah, it was disappointing, to be honest. I wanted a bit more from this character. I like the actor playing him. I like what they could have done with him, where he could have gone, I think. So yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment that he gets taken out so quickly and that it's not even seen on screen. And number 24 is Thanos himself. Obviously Thanos is going to be the big bad villain in Infinity Wars, so until I get to those films, I can't really rate him any higher than this. We've been given a few scenes with him in, most of which he doesn't talk in, but the most we've seen of him is in Guardians of the Galaxy, and in that scene we get enough from him to know that this is a seriously bad guy, and He's very physically threatening just because of the size of him. He's a very big guy, and you know he's going to pose a serious threat to the Avengers. However, as I say, we've not seen enough from him to warrant him being much higher on this list, but I do look forward to seeing what he's going to bring us in the future. Number 23 is Arnim Zola, played by Toby Jones. Now, in the first Captain America film, this guy wasn't much of a threat, so to speak. He was one of the Red Skull's underlings. He did all of his scientific work for him, but he was still a bad guy. Probably the one who did all the experimentation on Bucky Barnes, who becomes the Winter Soldier. We saw some of that in the first Captain America film. So yeah, so he's kind of your stereotypical German Nazi scientist type who's done a lot of nasty things on people, and I like him because of the way that Toby Jones plays him. He's not a very imposing or threatening figure, and sometimes that is the way monsters are. In reality, some of the most unassuming people can be some of the most monstrous as well, and you get that from this character, I think. And when we see his character make a return, although not necessarily in the same form, in Captain America the Winter Soldier, he's been elevated to something more as a villain. I mean, it's only a small scene, but it's a progression with that character. So even though we've only had him in 2 movies and some of his screen time has been quite short, we've had quite a bit of development with that character, and I do like it, and I would like to see him return in some form if that's going to be possible in the MCU. Number 22 is General Thunderbolt Ross. This is Betty Ross's dad. Now, some people may question my logic as to putting him as a villain, but let's think about it for a moment. He is the guy who has hunted down Bruce Banner, or tried to hunt down Bruce Banner, no end. This is a guy who is obsessed to the point that he pushes his own daughter to one side in order to reach the thing that he's obsessing over, which is Bruce Banner, the Hulk. He's the one who essentially gives Emil Blonsky all the power he needs to become an abomination. So this is not a good guy. He may work for the US military, he may be technically on the right side, but he's seriously misguided, and he's done a lot of bad things in order to pursue the Hulk. At number 21 is Trevor Slattery, aka the Mandarin, but not really the Mandarin. Again, this is another character that some people might question me putting him on this list, but the way I see it, he is a villain. He is responsible for doing some bad things. He may not be the one who has personally got blood on his hands by killing people, but he has worked for a terrorist group. He has posed essentially as the face of a terrorist network, and simply kind of living in ignorance, as he appears to do, is really not a good excuse. He's a bad guy, he's done some bad things, and simply because he's funny does not let him off the hook. At number 20 is Brant. Now, this is a female villain who is a henchwoman for Aldrich Killian. She doesn't really get a right lot to do. It's not a huge amount of character development, but we do get a little bit of a backstory for her. We know that she was a soldier in the US military, that she lost her arm, and that Aldrich Killian has given her a way to get that arm back. So we do understand why she is loyal to Killian. We do understand her kind of soldier mentality. So there is technically a bit more character development there than other villains that have already appeared on this list. But primarily, the reason she's on here is because she's actually quite a badass. She goes up against Tony Stark. He's not in the Iron Man suit at the time, but she poses quite a threat for him. And just I like the scene that she's in. I like the action that she's in, and for that I would have liked to have seen more of her, and I think it's a shame that they killed her off so soon in the film. At number 19 is Savin, who is Aldrich Killian's other henchman. Now, he has all the same powers as Brant. He's undergone all the same experiments as Brant, so they kind of work together to try and bring Iron Man down. Like a lot of the villains that appear on this list, he is still quite underdeveloped. What we do know about him, or get a sense from him, mainly comes from the performance by James Badge Dale. We get the sense that he's a military man We get the sense that he's competitive. We feel that in the way that he approaches Tony Stark and Iron Man. He sees him as I don't know, a target, something to be taken down, competition, sport, so to speak. This is nothing that's inherently in the script. It's a sense we get from the character just by the way he's played. He's quite a threat, quite menacing, simply because of the powers that he has. So yeah, a fairly entertaining right-hand man to Aldrich Killian. Number 18 is Brock Rucklow. We know this guy is apparently going to go on to play Crossbones, but in Captain America the Winter Soldier, this is just a soldier, one of Captain America's teammates, so to speak, who kind of goes rogue because he works for Hydra. And we get quite a few scenes with him. We get some decent action from him. He has a good fight scene with Captain America himself and with Falcon. But I think the reason I like this guy so much is probably the performance by Frank Grillo. You get the sense that this guy actually maybe doesn't like the fact that he's doing what he's doing at some points in the film. At other points you get a sense that he does, but it's I don't know, he's a soldier through and through, and you get the sense from him that he has a certain level of respect for Captain America. He doesn't want to take Captain America down, he's just doing his duty as he sees it. Because of that performance, there's a certain element of humanity there that would otherwise be missing, certainly on paper anyway. At number 17 is Yondu, played by Michael Rooker, who appears in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the man who abducted, or the alien who abducted Star-Lord, if you want to call him that, when he was a young lad. Now he himself becomes kind of a twisted father figure to Star-Lord. He's an interesting villain in some respects, in the sense that we get this motley crew that he leads. We get a sense of his character, who he is. He's a bit of a pirate himself, a bit of a rogue, and he has a nice little weapon with this flying arrow, which kind of, to me, I thought was a bit too powerful. It gave him a bit too much power at the end of that film when he uses it. Kind of makes you wonder why he doesn't use it more in the film. Yeah, he's an interesting villain. I'd be quite happy to see more of him. And at number 16 we have the big bad of Guardians of the Galaxy, Ronan the Accuser. Once again, and I hate to keep kind of barking on about this, a seriously underdeveloped villain. All we get as motivation for this guy is really that he's a bit mad because a conflict that has existed for goodness knows how long has kind of been settled and people have moved on, and he doesn't really want to move on. He wants to carry on the conflict, and that's literally it. That's all we get from him as a character. Lee Pace gives a pretty decent performance under all the makeup and the costuming. He even manages to inject elements of humour in there at one point. Beyond that, yeah, he's a physical threat, but there's not really much more. You don't really get the sense that this guy is a great intellect that is really going to give the Guardians much trouble. In many ways, he feels a little bit like a rehash of Malekith from Thor: The Dark World. The only difference here is that he does seem a little bit more physically imposing, and we do get to hear him speak in a language we understand. And so there you go, there's the first part of my rundown through the Marvel Cinematic Universe villains. Join me next time when I'll be counting down the final 15. If you agree or disagree with any of my choices here, if you think some should be higher, some should be lower, please comment below and let me know about it. And until next time, thanks for watching. In this first part, and then in the second 5 I will cover the last